All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm here with Alison Moscoso. Am I saying your last name right,
Yeah,
Alison?
Moscoso. Yeah, you got it
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So Allison was we were teammates at ReWire together, and one of the memories that I have of you, Allison, is, I mean, I learned how to I mean, I learned about contemplative spirituality at ReWire,
Mhm.
and I remember you leading. This is like in the very beginning. I was very new to Rewire, and you led us into a time of centering prayer, and
Hmm.
then I was like, "What is this?" But then it was so magical. I just remember being, "Wow, this is so good!" Like sitting in silence, and the way that you led it was really incredible. And then who knew that there would be the beginning of my journey into this kind of practice, and now I love what you taught us and what I learned from you, and I practice it all the time. So I'm really grateful for you. I'm really excited that you're here with us.
Oh, that's so kind. Well, I'm so glad that I was able to offer a little entryway, and I love where you've gone with it. It's become this
Yeah.
huge thing in your life that, it's part of what you're even studying. It's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. So obviously, we don't know you. The audience doesn't know you. So, would you kind of be able to introduce yourself a little bit? But I'm more also like with that, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you got into the type of ministry that you're in.
Yeah, so I live in California in the Bay Area, and I love all things people's inner world, how people connect in with themselves, make meaning of their lives, how they connect in with a higher power, the divine. And that is what led me into my ministry, is that I have always just deeply cared about people's interiority and wanted to listen and hear and understand because people are so fascinating. Everyone is their own world with their own everything, like their
Mm.
own meaning making, their own um, access points to God. Like it's incredible. And so I really found, well, you didn't ask about how I found spiritual direction, but
I
is it
mean,
okay?
what is your ministry
Okay. Well,
when you
I
say?
work as a spiritual director doing mostly focused on people who have some sort of like discontent with the church or their current like faith expression, and a lot of people who have some sort of wounding that they need to recover
Mm.
from as they try to, yeah, move forward into a spirituality that's more expansive and has room for them. I also do a lot of community facilitation, leading cohorts for people to be able to process and heal things that they have happened to them through their church experiences so that they can embrace a spirituality that actually meets their needs and fulfills them in the way that I think spirituality or faith is originally intended to be able to serve as a resource. So
Mm.
that is my ministry.
And then when you're talking about woundedness, is that the gray space that you're running?
Yeah, yeah. So Gray Space is kind of the cohort that I run for that. It's a 12 session cohort that mirrors the healing trauma healing journey, and it's for anyone who has any sort of, yeah, angst that they're still sitting with from their church experience. We are not like a trauma therapy cohort, we're just trauma informed, but people who have some sort of pain or wounding. Gray space usually is a context where a lot of healing can happen as we like name what's wrong and hold and process together and then imagine a new spirituality together.
Mm. So, how did you first encounter spiritual direction, and what drew you to it?
Yeah, so I encountered spiritual direction when I first started doing community development work, like community organizing. The organization I was part of at the time said to do this work, you have to have deep spiritual wells. So you need to go see a spiritual director. And so I went to meet with my spiritual director for the first time. And literally like 10 minutes in, I was just enamored. I was like, this is a vocation. Like, I just talk about this stuff all the time. Like, I didn't know it could be a job. And it was just the most fun, enlivening conversation. And just felt like these cosmic pieces aligning of this is yours, Allison. Like, this is what is yours to do in the world. And so that was, yeah, when I was straight out of college. So I was
Oh wow.
22 going to spiritual direction for the first time.
Wait, so
So
when did you become a spiritual director and what yeah.
yeah, so I started my training 3 years later when I was 25, which is not typical.
Yeah.
But I was so yeah, that was just so much of who I was in the world and what I did that the program that I participated in, they really saw that. And they're like, you already are a spiritual director. Like, let's
Mm,
actually give you the skills and equip you to be able to do what you're so clearly called to do. That I just accidentally did all the time because that was the kind of conversation I love to have. And so I feel very grateful that I was able to get trained so young, and be able to, yeah, do the thing I love most in the world.
so who are these trainers? Like where did you get trained? What
Yes.
can you tell us a little bit about that group?
Yeah. So I was trained with Sustainable Faith, um, when I was living in Chicago. So they have chapters all over, I think, the world now. It's
Mm,
been 5 years since I like had contact with them. So I'm not, they've grown a lot since then. But yeah, so I did a 2 year program, and we, yeah, just had a really incredible time of going deeper and really honing like my skills basically, like what kind of questions will get you what kind of response, like what do you listen for when someone's speaking, how do you know like if they're in their head or in their heart
mm,
or what they need in that moment. And so I just really was grateful for that chance to
mm,
basically workshop what it means to listen well, and to come with my own, yeah, like my experiences of what I was doing as like a student director with my like guinea pig directees,
yeah.
and to have them to get feedback on it and to be able to really, yeah, really just hone what it means to listen well to someone and to, um, offer promptings that take people deeper into themselves instead of offer promptings that take people in the direction that you're curious about.
Yeah.
And so that was really, yeah, really gift to have that training.
I mean, so you were already kind of mentioning what might have drew you into it, that you like the aspect of like listening, really listening for is it in the head or in the heart, or but if you could get a little bit more maybe personal, more
Yeah.
specific, like what, and then people were already recognizing that you are a spiritual director even before you began. So what is it? What do they see in you? And then for you, what kind of practice of spiritual direction that really clicked for you, that pulled you into it, that you really, this is my ministry. Yeah. What are those things that you saw that drew you in?
Yeah. So again, like what I was naming before, I just have always been fascinated by people's interior worlds. I'm deeply attuned to my own interior world,
Mm,
very, very present to, my own emotional experiences and wanting to unpack like what's going on, trying to unpack other people's motivations and what's happening for them, and have always cared about God and like who is this God and how do people connect in and what does that mean? And I think for me, what really drew me to spiritual direction was, to be able to sit in that space all of the time. Like we're not hanging out on this like superficial level. We immediately are diving deep into people's souls, and that's like the greatest honor and privilege that I could ever receive. And it is just so awe inspiring to like witness people's selves and like the courage that people hold and the wisdom and, uh yeah, it's just amazing. And so I feel like that's really what compelled me into spiritual
mm,
direction, was to be able to live in that deeper space, that deeper way of relating and listening, and to get to really understand who people are and how they work. And so that's really why I yeah, was drawn into it and love it so much. And there's also just something so magical about, especially with directees that have like belief in a higher power or have a connection to a higher power, to be able to um, witness that and to see the way that a loving God can really be a resource for people, and the way that
Mm,
that relationship can offer healing and transformation is just, again, awe-inspiring. Like the whole thing, I just sit there most sessions and I'm like, wow, like this person's amazing. And then in my
mm.
language, God is amazing. Just like, yeah, it's a beautiful thing to witness that. And yeah, the divine dance really in
Yeah.
front of me.
Yeah. I mean, so clearly you're very passionate about God and caring for people. So that caring part, the way that you describe it, it's beautiful. You are honored to share that you get to see how God is moving in their soul. And
Mhm,
you could have been a pastor with that kind of
mhm,
thoughts, care, and and your sensitivity that you have. You could have gone into therapy. You could have gone into the counseling, pastoral role, or any of that.
mhm.
Why? I mean, why not those, but this?
Yeah. So, um, I think that spiritual direction occupies a really unique space. And I'll kind of clarify like how I see it in connection to both those vocations that you named, of being a pastor or being a therapist. So, in terms of being a pastor, I think that the gift of spiritual direction is that there really isn't any agenda that a spiritual director has. Like a pastor necessarily is responsible for a church, and
Hmm.
they necessarily are speaking like beliefs and theologies and are trying to help people get somewhere. Whereas with a spiritual direction, I just get to be present to
Mm,
where someone's path is taking them. I don't have to give information, or I am not there to teach or anything like that. I'm there to be present and witness someone's unfolding. And that is so incredible to me. And I have so much respect for pastoral work and like feel like it's very, very needed. But I felt really called to this witnessing role more than a teaching shepherding role.
hmm.
And then in terms of therapy, again, similarly, I think therapy is super valuable and very, and often for a lot of my directees, they have therapists and it's great. I'm like, yes, thank you. Because we work on different things and they're complementary. Um, but for me, what I care most about is this kind of these spiritual underpinnings in someone's life, which is, I think, distinct from therapy, where therapy is more focused on like the skill building, and there is a lot of meaning making in therapy too, but it's through a different lens than spiritual direction, which is approaching things with this lens of your spirituality, your interconnectedness. What does that mean for you? How do you process the world in light of your connection to yourself, the divine, or others, or the land? And so there's this really distinct role, I think, that spiritual direction occupies in the midst of those three vocations, of being spiritual, like pastoral work, but also being like witnessing, which I just love that combination.
Mm. Just to make it a little bit clear, because like for some
Yeah.
people this is very new.
Mhm.
Let me put it kind of a little bit differently so that maybe it can be a little bit easily understood. So
Yeah.
what are some things that spiritual directors address
Mhm.
that counselors, therapists, or pastors do not address? Is there is that clear? I don't know.
Yeah, so I would say actually there's probably a lot of things that overlap in terms of what is being addressed,
Mm,
right? So I tell my directees that all of their life is sacred, so they can come in with anything. They don't have to
yeah.
bring in some sort of specific theological or spiritual thing to work on. Like maybe they are having issues with their boss and they bring that in, right?
Mm,
I think what it's not the material that we're working with that's different so much as like the manner in which we're approaching it. So again, um, like pastors, in my understanding, as not ever been a pastor, approach things much more from this sense of like pastoral care, like trying to help people kind of move along, move something, like kind of get to an understanding, right? A theological understanding that makes sense. Depending on the context, they may or may not have more rigid understandings that the person is trying to get to, right?
Hmm.
May or may not offer more platitudes of like, okay, like here's what it is, here's your Bible verse, here's this thing that we believe, hope that helps you. Again, that's a very simplified, reduced version. Remember that I mostly work with people who've been hurt by the church, so that's where that's coming from. And then I would say the manner in which like therapists approach things, again, never having been a therapist myself, is a lot more looking at like kind of depending on the different type of therapy, right? But we're working on like trauma healing, maybe. So it's a very somatic, like very specialized skill. Or maybe you're working on like relational skills, like how do you build, like have boundaries? How do you navigate conflict, right? Like it's skill building, helping you navigate your life. Whereas spiritual direction, I think it could look at anything in the same way, or could look at the same topic, but would approach it from this much more spacious way of lots of silence, letting someone kind of sit with their experience, right? So, say, for example, someone came into me with conflict with their someone at work, let's just say that, like a colleague. We're going to like sit with that and notice what's there, what's emerging there, what emotions are present there, what's kind of underneath those emotions, what does that tell you about who you are, where is God in that for you, like how does this inform your understanding of God,
Yeah.
or of yourself, right, or of how you show up in relationships. And depending on the directee, like we may even do a practice where we kind of imagine God present in that environment, or we talk to God about it, right? And so I think the manner in which we approach subjects is different, but the material, like the subject itself, might be the same across each profession.
Mm.
Does that
Mm.
make it clear?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, so you were talking about how you mainly work with people who are hurt by the church, or
Mhm.
some, it's you're outside the church, right? Your
Mhm.
context where you serve is outside the church.
Mhm.
Um, why did you? What brought you to outside the walls of church, not inside? Because I know there are spiritual directors inside the church.
Mhm.
Why have you chosen the to be outside?
Yeah. Well, I feel like I really kind of straddle both worlds a little bit. Like I still do a lot of work with people who are in the church, and
Yeah.
very happily so. But um, this kind of, I guess, emphasis or focus maybe on folks who are outside the church or have had wounding, um, I think really emerged organically. I was just really wanting to work with people and help them, like who wanted to expand, basically. Like that's what I
Mm,
was looking for, like people who wanted to expand, and um, their understandings of the divine and how they show up in the world. And as I was doing that, like the people who are kind of on the outside of the church are the people who are in some ways the most willing to expand. Like that
mm,
maybe sounds it's kind of a strong statement, but they've already deconstructed, they've already pulled things apart and said something
yeah.
here doesn't work for me, I want something bigger, I want something that actually means something, or I don't want it at all, right?
Mm,
And when you've been wounded, like you've seen the kind of the dark side, and it's like
yeah.
it makes you willing to really just let things go. And I deeply, deeply, deeply believe that we are all, like our birthright is to have a spirituality, right? Is to
Mm,
experience this connection to something larger than ourselves, whatever you want to call it, and to feel that like sense of interconnectedness. And so I'm deeply passionate about helping people restore that to themselves. And it grieves me that church for so many people has been a place that's like robbed them of that,
mm,
that has wounded them such that it's hard to access spirituality as a resource, like that there's so much healing that has to happen before spirituality can be a resource again.
mm,
And so being able to help people in that journey, or like just not even help them so much as like accompany them in that journey, is a huge gift and just, yeah, one of the most remarkable things to get to be a part of. And so,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think for those kind of couple reasons that I feel really drawn to people who are outside of the church. And
Mm,
then, of course, the people who are in the church who, like, I tend to work with other people who are wanting to expand, who are like, no, like, I think God is more loving than we could ever have imagined. And I want to experience that. And I want to be that in the world. And what
mm,
does that look like? And how do I tap into that? And I want more of God than what I've been given.
mm.
And so, yeah, I just really love that kind of that place, that sweet spot of longing for more, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's been interesting for me too, as I also work outside the church
Yeah.
context now. I think oftentimes people who have left church
Mhm.
get the bad rap, right? Like people kind of accuse them of like leaving church, or
Mhm.
they associate leaving church with to mean leaving faith. But
Yeah.
a lot of times, like I felt like they're seeking God even more than ever. Uh,
Mhm.
so I think spiritual direction has been very powerfully helpful for them.
Mhm.
Is that kind of like what you're experiencing? That there's a bigger hunger in their
Mhm.
heart. Those who have kind of walked away from church or their community.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I definitely think so. That for a lot of folks that have left church, they still are deeply spiritual and
Mm,
still deeply long for like their a connection, right? Like this, and it's really, I think that's part of what's so yeah, just really fascinating for me to get to work with, or is to see like, okay, like you have all of this like longing, like what shape is it going to take now, right?
mm,
Like now that we've left this like box and now you have like full freedom, like where is this longing going to lead you?
mm,
And what are you going to become, and what shape will your spirituality take, or your faith, right? For some, a lot of people, they still have some connection to the Christian faith, um and what will that look like? And so it's really, yeah, just really beautiful
yeah.
to witness that unfolding.
Yeah, and I don't want you to be misrepresented here. So, even though you work with people who have kind of left the church, but
Yeah.
you also work with people who are in the church.
Hmm.
So, why should they come seek spiritual direction if they're in the church? Because some people might think that is it, am I not getting this from church? Like, why should I come to a spiritual director?
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of like there, I think everyone should have a therapist. I think everyone should have a spiritual director. um, just because I think there's something really powerful about getting to name your truth and be
Mm,
witnessed in it. And in spiritual direction, there's um, yeah, there's this, it's like a very sacred space and a very unique type of space where you're able to go deeper into your experience, than I think happens if you're at church, right? Like again, maybe in your Bible studies, you're going deeper, or in your small groups. But generally that's like content that you're being given that you're going deeper with.
mm,
Whereas in spiritual direction, the content is your own life, and
mm,
you're going deeper into your own experiences of your own life and discovering where God is there,
mm,
or maybe how you felt like God wasn't there, right? And it's this space to be really honest and to, um, yeah, to really come home to yourself in a new way. And I think when we come home to ourselves, that's like the path to coming home to God, actually, that God is present with us.
mm.
And so when we choose to go deeper into our own lives and experiences, we can see God more clearly. And so I encourage anyone to get spiritual direction, just because it is such a unique space. Um, does that speak to what you're
Yeah,
asking?
yes, yes. Uh, so on a personal level, I'm kind of curious about
Yeah.
how spiritual direction has changed you.
Mhm. Yeah. So, like giving spiritual direction or being in spiritual direction
Being a
myself?
spiritual director. Yeah.
Okay. Um, yeah. So being a spiritual director, yeah, how has it changed me? I get so much joy thinking about spiritual direction and being a spiritual director. I think, yeah, I'm not sure if it's changed me so much because I think in some ways being a spiritual director is like such a thing I naturally inhabit that
Mm.
it just felt like, oh, me, hi, like this is like a truer version of me. But I can say the ways that like being a spiritual director has shaped me or um has influenced me because I think truly part of the gift of getting to witness people's journey is that does change me, right? Like
Mm.
as I am walking with someone else, that's the way they're seeing the world, the way they're seeing themselves or others or God or the land, like that changes the way, not changes, but influences and shapes me. And I think a really particular good example of this is there was a period in my life where I myself was really feeling quite distant from God. I kind of felt like God had abandoned me, like it was just this silence. And that was a really, really hard period for me. But as
Mm.
I was showing up to spiritual direction, I was watching my directees like have these incredible experiences of God.
Mm.
And so it kept me anchored and tethered of like, no, like there is a loving God that is present. And I just can't access that for some reason right now. But that like I can't deny that that is real. And it really grounded me in a season where I
Mm.
needed that to be able to witness other people's journey. I think my directees give me courage to be more honest with myself about who I am and where my faith is going as I witness their radical honesty and truth telling as they become who they are. I feel so inspired by them all of the time. Truly, I like finish sessions and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this person, like, I now feel like I could do something and want to do something better with my life or with the world. And so yeah, I'm continually influenced and shaped by what I receive and witness from my directees. And
Mm.
um, yeah, it's a powerful experience to get to be in that witness seat and to kind of participate in people's journey in that way.
I think being a spiritual director kind of gives you a very unique perspective. Now, I mean, like you've been a spiritual director naturally, even before you got the training. I mean, that was just who you are. So you probably already had this kind of very unique perspective. But being you and being a spiritual director, when you look at church today, then with your unique insight, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing the church?
Yeah, I mean, I have a answer ready and waiting for that
Oh
one.
yeah.
Because
All
this is
right.
something I
Okay.
think about a lot. Um, I'm like, it might be heavy, but I live here. So,
Okay.
yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges that I see is the way that I mean, again, and it's really hard to generalize because there are so many branches of church, right? And so many ways that people are practicing the Christian faith very differently. And so just want to offer that qualification. But one of the things that I see that kind of has crept into a lot of different spaces in the Christian faith is truly like power and control.
Mm.
That there are theologies that center power and control, that there are practices and beliefs and ideas that center power and control. Um, and power and control over others,
Yeah.
as opposed to surrendering power and control, which is what I think Jesus really modeled for us. And that has a name. It's called like high control dynamics.
Mm.
And while there are some examples of like traditions that are like very clearly like, oh, there's a lot of control here. So it's, sometimes in other traditions is a little more innocuous. Like it looks like, okay, on the surface things look good, but then you kind of unpack it and there are still some of those dynamics at play. And I think that that is so dangerous because it
Mm.
teaches, it like outsources people's autonomy, it outsources their authority to somebody else.
Mm.
And when we divorce people from themselves like that, they no longer can I mean, I would argue, can no longer truly experience God. They no longer can truly be connected to themselves and to like
Mm,
a sense of what feels right or true or good in their bodies. And I think that's like, I mean, this is a pretty big declaration, but I think this is why we have Christian nationalism, right? Like
mhm,
that is an easy progression from a high control religion, where it's like, okay, there is this one person who has the authority and the truth, and it is not me, and I just have to follow this, and this is the only right way to live, and there's no room to question it, and this is what, yeah, this is what I do.
mhm.
And if I can't listen to anybody else because everyone else is wrong and they don't understand, right? And so yeah, I think that is the most dangerous thing that is happening in a lot of church contexts that I see, is the way that these kind of like high control dynamics are at work, impacting people.
Yeah.
That was kind of abstract. Do I need to be a
No, no,
little
no,
more
no, no,
concrete
no.
or
That's
okay?
good. That's good. It makes me think of so this wasn't in the question that I sent you before,
Yeah,
but this is what I'm thinking about a lot.
yeah.
So obviously that makes me think about pastors who are in
Mhm,
power.
mhm,
Um, and then it makes me think of Eugene Peterson. I quote him a lot.
mhm,
Eugene Peterson said, three essential rules of a pastor is to prayer and scripture, and the third thing he said was spiritual direction,
mhm,
which I find it very interesting because I've been a pastor, but I never heard of that.
mhm.
I never heard of spiritual direction
Yeah,
until 20 years into ministry. So, uh, spiritual direction seems to be kind of in Protestant circle, at least, it seems like
yeah,
something new. But it's not new. But
mm-mm.
it felt new.
Yeah,
I do feel like if we really honor that role of being a spiritual director as a pastor, I think we would have been much better about
mhm,
handling properly the power that was entrusted to us and not to
mhm.
abuse it. We're living in a very unique time when spiritual
Yeah,
direction is emerging as a
mhm,
vocation.
mhm,
Do you know where it came from? And can you speak into like it sounds new to us, to people who grew up in Protestant circles. This is
mhm,
like, what is this? Like people still don't know. Like even today, like when I talk about
mhm.
I'm a spiritual director today, they're like, what is that? Right. So a lot of
Yeah.
people don't know what this is. So where did it come from? Is this a new thing? Because some people think that this is a new thing, a new age thing. So can you enlighten us a little bit about where it comes from? How come pastors are not doing this anymore?
Yeah, so I by no means I'm a historian, so I can only repeat what I have been told. So you might want to fact check this, but
Okay.
yeah, spiritual direction is an ancient practice. Like we think back to the desert fathers and mothers, people would come and visit them and like seek them to be able to receive essentially spiritual direction. And this tradition has carried on and been held through the sacred, through the Catholic Church. They've like maintained this as a sacred practice of spiritual direction. And it is true that it's only recently that Protestants have kind of woken up to the fact that this might be important and have gotten on board. But it is not new. It is a very, very ancient practice and a really essential one, I think. I really see it as kind of like what you said, like some of the antidote to so much of what we're, at least what I feel like I'm witnessing when it
Mm,
comes to power and control, because spiritual direction says, no, actually, like I'm not here to tell you what to think or what to believe. I'm here to kind of restore the inner authority and the autonomy back to you, and I'm going to give
mm,
you room to notice and make meaning of your experiences and hear from God for yourself and connect dots. And I will be present as a witness and as a um, facilitator. But truly, at the end of the day, like you have the autonomy and the authority to um, discern and to have your own spirituality. And I think that somewhere along the way, I mean, that's harder work, right? It's harder work to sit with someone. And it's also not as good for an institution, right? I mean, like if you have an institution where there's like, say we have a church and there's 50 people and we're trying to get all of them to listen and go on their own paths, like that that's a harder thing than creating a Sunday service with like, okay, great, like here's the material that I'm offering, and now you can engage with it as you will. And so I think it just got lost because it's such a difficult space to hold, and I think it's so important though. Um, but it's also kind of scary because you're letting
Yeah.
go a little bit of that power of like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm like giving this person the authority to listen and discern for themselves,
Mm.
right? And that's scary, especially if you are in power. It's like, what if they discern that they don't want to be a part of this church anymore? What if they discern that they're not going to give money to us anymore, right? Like, there's all these implications when you give people back their power.
Mm.
um, which I cannot. That sounds like I think that everyone is quite thinking along these lines of like, oh, I have
Yeah.
to keep power, and I don't think that's a conscious thought for a lot of people. But I do think that that is part of why it kind of fell out of vogue to say, and wasn't a regular practice of pastors. Um, but I do think that that's part of why it's coming back, because people are
Mm.
like, I need a space to heal and reintegrate and like come back to myself and be able to discern for myself, and to have a connection to God that actually suits me and works for me and isn't this like cookie cutter thing that I've been given.
Mm.
So there's some thoughts. I'm not sure I
Yeah.
totally exactly spoke to what you asked for, but
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
so
there's
far.
definitely a scary thing about, I mean, in some sense, like almost we're calling or encouraging people to own up to their responsibility of hearing from God
Mhm.
themselves, and then not relying on someone to tell you what to do. Because I feel like, in some way, I think in our Protestant culture, we got so used to just looking up to the pastor, and pastor just tell us what to do, kind of thing,
Right.
and I think in some strange way, there's a comfort in just like, yeah, just tell us what to do. We'll do
Yeah.
that. But this is kind of a little bit different. I mean, listen, a lot different. We're re-engaging God again
Yeah.
and discerning for ourselves what God is saying to us, and no longer relying on a middle person or someone else to kind of tell us how to run our lives. So that could be kind of scary, right?
Yeah. And that, I mean, it's a hard switch, right? Like, and that's something that I have to very intentionally think about, is that sometimes I'll have directees who come in because as a spiritual director, I also have power,
Yeah,
right? Like, that's really important to acknowledge that when people come to me, like, they're coming to me because they see me as
right.
someone with the power, right? With like guidance, with whatever they're looking for. And so I have to be very intentional about like saying no, like I'm giving this power back to you.
Yeah,
And so sometimes I'll have directees that will be like, well, what do you think? I'm like, that's not why we're here. Like, actually, I never will tell you what I think. I'm never going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to give you like homework of a practice or something.
yeah,
Like, actually, like, this space is for you to be able to discern, and I'm going to ask questions and I'll reflect what I hear you say back to you, and
mm,
occasionally maybe during the session I'll say, hey, do you want to try this practice? But it will always be an option and out of several options that I'll give you,
yeah,
because ultimately, like, you get to decide, right? And
yeah.
that's hard. It's hard for people to practice that, and it's hard, as a person. It's like, oh, you want to know what I think? Like, oh, I have lots of ideas. But it's like, no, like, that's not us. That would be an abuse of my power, right? Like, I don't want
Right.
to do that. I'm here to restore power to you and help you discern for yourself. I'm not here to give you answers.
Okay. So then this is a good time for me to ask you to kind of clarify, because I think a lot
Yeah.
of people get confused with the title because it
Yeah.
says spiritual director. So they
Hmm.
think that we are directing or giving some sort of direction for them. And then you mentioned about, desert fathers and mothers, and then
Yeah.
people have come all the way to seek wisdom from our
Right.
desert fathers and mothers. So in some sense, that's kind of like sounds like mentoring, sounds like
Yeah.
discipling, sounds like giving advice. But you're saying that's not what we are doing. So what I mean, in some sense, I think I've heard some people say like, well, the desert fathers and mothers, they were giving advices, they were giving mentorship, but you're saying now like spiritual directors are not doing that. So it's a little confusing. Can you clarify what spiritual direction is? Then where's the direction
Yeah.
coming from,
Yeah.
and what
Absolutely.
why has it changed from our
Yeah.
desert father and mother days to now in terms of
Yeah.
what we
So,
do?
um, I can't totally speak to the historical context, but I can speak to like what spiritual direction is, or what I would claim that it is. And so spiritual direction, it is such a misnomer. I wish we could rebrand it. Because
How would
it's
you rebrand it?
well, that's the thing. I haven't quite come up with a name for it because um yeah, like there is another language, like people are using spiritual companion, but I think that that language is almost a little bit too soft because that
Mm,
doesn't quite acknowledge the power dynamic that's there. It's
mm,
like, oh, we're equals on a journey together, but the reality is that I'm present as the person who is facilitating that experience
mm,
for you. And so it's not that I'm not just your friend, right? Like
mm.
I'm doing a skilled labor for you, and there is a power dynamic there. So that is though the rebranding that is happening is towards spiritual companion,
Yeah.
which I'm not mad about. It works. I think it's good too, but just has its little Enneagram 1, so everything has its fallacies to me. But yeah, spiritual direction. I do think that in some ways, spiritual direction, like the space is about you kind of finding direction, but the distinction is that I am not the one giving it to you.
Mm,
Right, like you, as you are unpacking your own experience, are finding your path forward, are finding your direction. Like I cannot know or tell you who you're supposed to be or where you're supposed to go. Right, like I am not you. I
mm,
don't have your experiences. I don't know what's alive in your soul or what's not, right? Like that's only something you can know. And so
mm,
spiritual direction is about unpacking that stuff that's in you so that you can find your direction. Um, and so you are the director as the directee in some ways, and then the other person in the room would be God. And again, I use the language of God for my higher power, but there is this divine presence that is
mm,
also directing, that is accompanying your spirit. And my role as a spiritual director is not to direct or tell anyone where to go or what to do, but rather to help notice what is emerging as this person, my directee's spirit and the spirit of love or God, like meet and like speak to each other. And it's like, oh, what is the path that's unfolding here? And how do I mirror it back? Like this person just said something that felt really weighty. Let me say it back to them so they can
mm,
hear themselves, maybe for the first time, and notice that there is a path already in them,
yeah.
that is just now slowly like coming to the light. Um, and I think that is really the role spiritual direction plays, is like helping people get in touch with their own direction, really. Um, and that's to me so much more compelling and beautiful than me pretending that I know better than you do for your life. Like what? How is that even possible? Like I do not want to give you direction. I want to just witness as you discover with God your path and
Mm.
continue to walk it.
Is there a practice that you can recommend for folks to practice in terms of what it means to be in present with God? So yeah, what is your favorite? I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's not the right way to say it, but uh, uh, if you were to recommend one practice for listeners, what would it be?
Yeah, I would love to do that. Can I quickly just add one more thing to my previous
Sure.
answer?
Yes. Yes. Please
So I
do.
do want to name that I think it's important to acknowledge that the spiritual director, in some way, like I am facilitating, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not that I'm passively sitting there doing nothing. Like the questions that I answer or the thing I ask or the things that I pick up on, like in a way are directive, right? Like I'm putting the conversation on a particular path. Um, and that's something that I have to always be paying attention to
Right.
is, am I putting this conversation on a path that actually is aligned with what this person is saying, or is it aligned with something in me? Right, because
Yeah.
if it's about me, then that's not good.
Right.
Like this is supposed to be about, like, I should be asking a question that actually honors what this person just said and helps them go deeper into their experience instead of
Yeah.
pulling them out of it into the thing that I think is better.
Yeah.
And so that is happening. So there is shaping that's happening from me as a spiritual director, which I think is important to acknowledge, but it isn't like, hey, I'm giving you this advice.
Right.
or I'm going to give you an answer. I'm going to tell you where to go. And even in the like questions I'm asking or the things I'm mirroring back, as a spiritual director, I have to be very cautious to make sure that I am not actually implicitly giving them an answer or offering a direction, but that I'm staying true and authentic to what's happening in that person.
Yeah.
And so from direction session to direction session, right? I might have someone come in with the exact same like thing that they're working on, and they might go in totally two different directions, right? And
Yeah, I
like
think
that's
that
important. Go for it.
yeah, that's why I really learned to appreciate spiritual direction and directors because I think, as you said, it's not just something that anyone can do. It's something you need to be trained in because you become very aware of not only your own biases. I mean, like what you're
Yeah,
hearing, you're basically paying attention to the God's movement, Spirit's movement within their story, kind of paying attention to what God might be doing in their life. But also, we have to pay attention to my own biases, my own stories intersecting with theirs, because so that we have to be very careful not to bring in our own story into theirs, and then not to try to understand their story with our story because that's not honoring their
right.
story. And because sometimes we can easily assume like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're going through because I've been through that, and then we can hijack that story,
Yeah,
or we try to kind of understand their story through our own lens. So like the
right.
directors have to be very clear about no, no, no. This is I cannot bring. It's not about my story. We gotta be aware of our own woundedness as well, and we have to be also very clear that we're not. I mean, we have to be at a place where we're not wounded and we're not doing ministry out of our woundedness.
Yeah,
So like yeah, there's so much that goes on that awareness that directors need to have. So yeah,
yeah,
that you're. I feel like you're touching upon the depth of awareness that's required for us to notice things. There's
yeah,
so much stuff going on, and we have to notice the presence of God, their stories, and even our own stories, and make sure that our own stories
yeah,
don't come into this space. And yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's a lot to hold and manage
yeah,
sometimes.
yes,
But it's important, and that's the work, right?
yeah,
Of the director to do and to be able to manage. So
yeah. So thank you for
you may.
speaking into that. Yeah,
Yeah, of course. Well, I also want to honor the question that you already asked, so I
yeah.
can quickly speak to that about
Mm-hmm.
Um, a practice that I'm like current favorite, I guess, though it's a long-term favorite, is walking a labyrinth. I
Mm.
love walking labyrinths. There's something so, I think there's something about the embodiment that just really helps me sink into that quiet, still place inside of me where like my sinks into my soul, basically, like where my spirit meets God's spirit, in a way that sitting still doesn't always work for me. And so I love that. I love the kind of the way I practice it is like as you walk in, you're just kind of releasing everything that you're carrying. You like arrive at the center, which is like union with God,
You start from
present there.
outside and then you enter,
Yeah.
go toward the
Yeah. So
center, right?
labyrinths
Yeah.
are not a maze. It's a
I
path.
know it
So you
looks like a
can't get
maze.
it looks like a maze, but you can't get lost. There's just one walking path all the way to the center. And so you walk in, you're like releasing your cares, you get to the center, you just get to like rest there and soak in like the presence of love. And then as you walk back out, you like notice if there's a gift or like a insight or a grace that you feel like you're receiving from God. And so I love that practice just because I just find so much ease in myself as I do it and find so much connection to the divine. But I also love it because it is intended to mirror the spiritual journey.
Mm.
And it's kind of annoying sometimes because you're like walking along and you think you're about to be at the center and you're like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, finally, like we made it. And then your path leads you all the way back out to the other edge. And it's this thing. And that's how the spiritual life is, right? Is that actually it is never like the goal is not union with God 100% of the time, right? Like that's impossible to achieve. Like our journey will always have these moments where we feel close to God and we feel really intimate, and moments where we're like, wow, does God even exist? Right? Like that's just part of it.
Yeah.
And so I love that the labyrinth mirrors that and gives permission for all of these pieces of the spiritual journey to people in this really physical, tangible way. And so, like, in those moments where you're like feeling the sense of God is so far, you can just be like, oh, I'm just on the outer side of the labyrinth. It's fine. Like, I'm still headed towards the center. Like, I'm still going to end up at the center with God always. And
Yeah.
truly, like, God is accompanying you on the journey too, right? Like, so let's
So,
not,
so I mean, we have Labyrinth in the city of Boston. In the there's
yeah,
a park called the Greenway, and then there's a Labyrinth in the middle of the city, which I really love. But sometimes I, like when I'm walking toward the center, like
yeah,
tell me like what are we supposed to do? Like sometimes like as I'm walking, and then I want to make it meaningful, but sometimes I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing as I'm walking close. So you said when we're walking out, we're trying to notice the gift in
yeah.
a gift that we see in life. So that's good. But as we're walking toward the center, is there something that we're supposed to do?
Yeah, so you're like releasing your like worries or your cares or like the things that you're holding on to basically. So um I just basically I'm like I'm just emptying everything that's in my mind and my heart
Mm,
as I'm walking to the center. I'm just letting it go, giving it back to the labyrinth to hold, to God to hold, to whoever you want, that you are not holding it anymore.
mm,
And so it's this like emptying period that you might come to the center and then be filled up with the love of God. And then as you exit, you kind of notice if God had a grace for you or like has a gift
mm.
for you that you want to carry with you as you exit. Would it be helpful to give like a tangible example? Or,
Sure.
okay, just to kind of make it concrete. So I practice labyrinths all the time as because I love them. And one time I was walking into the center and I was just overwhelmed with noise. Like I was in a period of my life with a lot of just a lot going on, and so I had a lot of noise in my head, trying to quiet it down. And I got to the center. I felt like this sense of like wait, and I was like, what, why would I wait? And I was, I was still, I hadn't done like it was really hard for me to quiet down, and I was like, which voice do I listen to, like what, like it was just a very disorienting time in my life, but I felt this sense of wait, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna wait. And this little like deer family just like emerged out of the woods and like came close to me, and I was like,
Mm,
what is even happening?
wow.
um and it was just like so enchanting and so beautiful and just felt like this incredible gift. And so as I was leaving, I felt like the gift that I was given was that I could trust my sense of discernment, that
Mm,
like I could, like I listened to that wait and then this beautiful thing happened. And so from that experience of the labyrinth, it felt like God was saying like, yeah, like there is a lot of noise, but like you can trust what you hear still. Like you can trust
mm,
yourself. And that was what I really needed in that moment. That was a grace
mm.
that I latched onto because I needed that in that season of my life. And so that was my grace in that moment. And who knows what people's different graces are. I cannot promise you that there will be a cute little deer family that appears, um, but you never know, like what God might offer you as you like back out the
Yeah.
labyrinth.
Okay. Yeah, we're definitely not gonna run into deers if we're doing it in the city of Boston, where. But yeah. I got maybe like two, three more questions. Are you doing okay
Okay,
with time?
yeah, yeah, I'm
Okay.
happy to.
Yeah. Okay. So, how does spiritual direction fit into the future of the church?
I think that it is absolutely essential that this is, again, we're going to come across a little strong here. But I think that if the church is to survive and to be something that is actually, I don't know, resembles the way of Jesus and is vibrant and alive, like spiritual direction is essential to that. Because spiritual direction gives people capacity to imagine and reimagine what connection to God looks like, what it feels like. It actually lets the church be the church where there are
Mm,
so many incredible expressions, right? Of what it means to know God, love God. We're all made in the image of God, where we get to see that reflection all the time. Yeah, and so if the church is to become a like viable, beautiful entity in the world, I think spiritual direction is like part of the path to get there.
yeah.
As it like allows people to, yeah, imagine and come back into themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, obviously, when we're thinking about the church, future church, like we have to talk about the leaders of the church. So
Mhm.
I'm not just going to say the pastors, but also any leaders that are running, whether it be a typical traditional church or micro church, because we are in micro churches, church
Yeah.
environment, right? So any leader or any folks that are privileged to guide the flock, God's
Mhm.
flock, what would be your advice for these leaders? Like,
Mhm.
is that better for them to now be trained in spiritual direction? Is that what we need, or do we need them to kind of recognize that, oh, maybe then they don't have to be spiritual directors, but invite spiritual directors into the community? Like, what
Yeah.
would be your advice for the leaders of the church?
Yeah. I don't think that everyone needs to become spiritual directors, right? Actually, I think that it's important to acknowledge that there are different roles, right? And
Mm,
different giftings. And I would hate if a brilliant teacher was wasting their gifting trying to listen to someone, right? Like,
mm,
that's not going to work for them. It's not going to work for the directee. Like, let's not do it. Like, just keep on doing your incredible, like, theological excavation and teaching, like, that's important. Um, and so I think that there is room for all the different places, but I think we need to build bigger tables so that there is actually
mm,
room for everyone and every all of their giftings, right? And I would say I would really hope that pastors would have a spiritual director themselves. From the work that I've done with like people in pastoral leadership, like it is rough out there trying to be a
yeah.
pastor. And so I'm like, please have a spiritual director just so that you can be okay, right? Like,
Mm,
you deserve to have space to say, I'm not sure I believe any of this anymore, or like, this vocation is hurting me and I don't know what to do, right? Like, you deserve spaces like that. Or to celebrate, right? Like, this is amazing. And I'm like on the path God has made me for. Like, great. Like, you deserve a space where you can have that and process that.
mm,
Um, and I think having that, like, as something that people encourage their congregation into of like, hey guys, like, this is important. You also should have a spiritual director. Like, you get to be growing and attending to, right? Like, and maybe having referral lists or having like, I don't even know what, but just making that a practice that's known and available as part of the congregation. In a similar way that like people advertise like small groups. It's like, okay, we as a church also value community. We also value spiritual direction. So like, here's our referral list, having that kind of upfront and center might be helpful and benefit everyone.
mm. Final question. So,
Yes. Okay.
so if people are inspired by this talk right now, and they want
Yeah.
to, it's like, oh yeah, how do I find Allison? How do they find you? And then, if people are intrigued by that gray space that you talked about
Mhm.
earlier,
Yeah.
yeah, how do they find you, and how do they get plugged into gray space?
Yeah. So you can go to my website, AlisonMoscoso.com. Um, I also have a newsletter called The Way Station. So it's like a bi-weekly update that has like a spiritual reflection. It has a like discovery corner where like actually in a recent one we just talked about labyrinths and the practice of labyrinths. And I have reflection prompts for going deeper and usually like a spiritual practice as well. So you can always be connected in that way, to just kind of be able to receive spiritual care through an email. And yeah, those are the two places that you can find me. But really, just go to my website and everything is there. And Gray Space launches every usually once to twice a year. If you're on that email list, you'll know when it happens. Otherwise, my website is always updated with the newest cohort that is launching. So you can
Mm.
always check it out.
All right. Yeah, come check it out, everybody. It was really great to have this conversation with you, Allison. You're inspiration to me. I mean, you're one of the reasons why I am doing what I'm doing. And
Oh,
you helped me out, in the middle of
yeah.
training. Sometimes I didn't know what I'm doing. So you supervised me a little bit, right? Do you remember that? Yeah.
It's
I
true.
was
We had a few chats.
Yeah, I was very grateful for your
Oh,
your uh, your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience. So, yeah.
good.
So please, everybody, if you're intrigued, come talk to Allison, find her. So thank you
And
very
I'm
much,
always, oh,
Allison.
yes.
Yeah.
Thanks. I was just gonna say, I'm always happy to meet with people and talk to them more about spiritual direction. Like, even if you are interested, but you don't know if you want to work with me, like, I'm happy just to tell you about spiritual direction or get you in contact with someone else. Because I really believe this is essential. So you can just, yeah, find me on my website, reach out, and I'll be happy to chat with you more.
Great.
Thank you,
Thank
Dan,
you
for
so much.
hosting me
Yeah.
too. It's so good to be with you. I love this
Yeah.
conversation.
Thank you. I loved it too. Yeah.